The majority of us think that life begins at birth and ends at death. As a result, we rejoice when a kid is born and grieve when someone passes away. Many of us try to separate ourselves from our dread of dying while we're still alive. The fact that most of us refrain from talking about it serves as an example of this. But our attitudes and ideas about death are only that, attitudes and beliefs. Therefore, perceptions and attitudes don't accurately capture reality as it really is. Considering this, if we alter our ideas, we may adopt a more empowered perspective of death. Before we go into this video, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and press the notification button so you get notified when I post a new video. The philosophy of death. Samsara in Hinduism refers to the never-ending cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation. In the Bhagavad Gita's verses 8.17 to 8.19, the cyclic emergence, disintegration, and re-emergence of all existences are discussed. Buddhism holds that while existence itself is everlasting, its outward representations are transient. Every experience we have is a representation of life. We don't have life if we have this notion. Instead, life is in us. We're all life that has momentarily assumed the shape of a person. The core of who we are does not vanish when we pass away. We no longer exist in our human form as life. Instead, until it's time for us to acquire shape once more, we return to the formless. Life is what we refer to as birth. Buddhism has traditionally placed a strong emphasis on the concept of rebirth. According to the oldest texts in the Pali Canon, the Buddha was searching for pleasure before being awakened, one that was immune to the whims of recurrent birth, age, disease, and death. He abandoned his early gurus for a number of reasons, one of which being the realization that their teachings did not lead to the end he wanted, but rather to a more polished kind of reincarnation. Two of the three knowledge that led to his deliverance from suffering on the night of his awakening dealt with rebirth. The first displayed his own numerous past lives, while the second illustrated the universal pattern of creatures passing away and reborn throughout the cosmos and demonstrated the link between reincarnation and karma. What gets reborn? The acorn is a traditional metaphor. An oak tree grows from an acorn. The acorn is not there while the oak tree is here, and no acorn fragment can be located inside the oak tree. Simply said, one has succeeded the other in the same way that one moment in one life succeed the ones that came before them. Reincarnation is when a soul moves from one body to another. On the other side, rebirth is a cycle of numerous births and deaths with no soul to connect them. While it's often referred to as rebirth, it might just as well be re-death because every existence includes both a birth and a death. This cycle of rebirth and re-death involves supernatural beings and locations in many traditional types of Buddhism. These locations and entities are believed to be genuine by many traditional Buddhists. In fact, this is at the heart of many traditional formulations of the fundamental issue that Buddhism seeks to resolve. All of these many sorts of lifetimes collectively constitute what is known as samsara. In each of these many realms, beings are continuously born and extinguished. The most significant aspect of the rebirth teaching, the component that matters most and appears true, is that life goes on. That is, our lives consist of more than just a brief period between birth and death. Our life and death have greater significance than we are aware of, according to the idea of rebirth. Birth is significant. Death is significant. Indeed, death is a transformation that is at least as significant as birth. Life is a series of significant transitional moments. This, in my opinion, is the essence of the rebirth teaching. The process of rebirth. Mental variables that have been developed, either consciously or unconsciously, are what shape the rebirthing process. The energy and shape of the subsequent birth are subsequently conditioned by these mental traits, which include desire, generosity, wrath, and loving-kindness. Without necessarily believing in reincarnation, we may obsess this conditioning process in action in this life. The strength of previous conditioning and how it impacts our experiences in the present may be seen if we are conscious and pay close attention to our lives in the here and now. We can be motivated to work toward achieving inner freedom and the unconditioned in this present lifetime by being aware of the restrictions and burdens of conditioning. Reincarnation and rebirth. Reincarnation is the concept that a soul exists one body and enters another. It is a very common and incorrect interpretation of Buddhism's continuance. Buddhism is not practiced if you believe that a soul or self resides in a body and departs as the body deteriorates and assumes a different form. After passing away, a person is born again into a new life. This might take a variety of times, depending on the person's particular views. While Theravada Buddhists from Sri Lanka Burma, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia believe that rebirth can sometimes be instantaneous. Tibetan Buddhists hold that there is an intermediate stage known as the bardo that can last up to 49 days. Achievers of enlightenment or nirvana or nibbana do not experience rebirth after passing away. Rebirth can take one of 5 or 6 different forms in Buddhism. The following are listed in order of importance: gods, demigods, people, animals, hungry ghosts, and creatures from hell. The belief that one has the highest possibility of attaining enlightenment whilst in this stage of existence makes rebirth as a human being exceptionally fortunate because it's seen as being rare. The prior ideas and deeds of an individual determine their rebirth. Every deliberate action, whether good or harmful, results in karma. Positive karma will facilitate a positive reincarnation and vice versa. The final minutes of a person's life are significant because their final thoughts and sentiments will have an impact on how the first instant of the next life is conditioned. In Buddhism, karma has an enormously broad scope. While a happy death cannot undo any bad karma, it can serve as a springboard for a better path that is more likely to produce merit. Eventually, this virtue could overcome any negative karma. To be reincarnated under Maitreya, the future Buddha, is a popular funeral benediction in Sri Lanka. How to prepare for death? Making sure the dying person is mentally prepared for death is the finest thing you can do for them. The nature of rebirth might be influenced by one's final moments. A person's rebirth is seen to be better the more composed and ready they are. Flowers and Buddha pictures can be put next to the dying person to encourage them to preserve their religious beliefs. Some customs cover the sufferer with a mandala-patterned blanket as a visual assistance. There are a lot of actions that may be performed to better prepare, but no particular rituals are necessary. If at all feasible, invite monks to the dying person's bedside. They would recite poetry or offer prayers, while also reminding the dying person of their earlier good acts. Instead, passages from scriptures like the Mahamangala Sutta, Karanyametta Sutta, and Ratana Sutta might be recited by a family member, friend, or chaplain. One might compare how our karma influences the cycle of birth and death to a business person. A person's business operations in any particular year have an impact on that year's results. The business owner's results the next year will be impacted if they incur significant debt and improperly handle their finances. On the other hand, a well-managed company will probably have positive results the next year. You may think of your current physical shape as the current business year. Your choices now will have an impact on your subsequent lives. Reincarnation is more about the type of karmic energy you were born into than the shape you adopt in your future existence. We also have favorable karmic inclinations, so they're not all bad. We shall be freed from the never-ending cycle of life and death when we work to transcend our bad karmic inclinations. This is the state that is generally referred to as nirvana. Our daily choices that produce value for both ourselves and others are what propel us toward nirvana.